Welcome to Side of Science.
With Stacey and Clinton, because every story has a side of science.
On today's episode, we're talking about venoms, poisons, toxins, and how they can ruin your day, take off the years, or relieve your pain.
Okay, Stace, I know that you don't like snakes, so brace yourself for this story, but I was jogging on the river the other day, early in the morning on a Sunday, and did have to stop suddenly in my tracks at the side of a very large tiger snake.
Oh my goodness. Mm-mm.
In the inner city, plenty of people around. The person in front of me did not stop to warn me, but I did then stop others and just let the snake retreat back into the bush. But it did get me wondering a lot, which is, I know is our topic for this week, around venoms, toxins, poisonous animals. We have a lot of them here in Australia, so...
We do. Yeah, actually, we have the highest concentration of venomous, poisonous animals in the world, which I love Australia, but I hate snakes. I hate them. And spiders. Creepy.
So I want to know what the difference is between venom, poison, toxin, because I feel like they're all used interchangeably, at least by me, but I reckon that's probably not scientifically accurate.
Yeah, good question. So if it's venomous, it must be injected into you. So think of like the snake bangs and injecting their venom. Whereas if it's poisonous, it can be absorbed or ingested. So you could eat it or breathe it in and that could be, or drink it. That could be poisonous. And then toxin, I feel kind of gets thrown around a lot, like detoxes and stuff like that. But I guess in this sense, it's something that's negative effect on the body.
So snake, the tiger snake I saw is going to be venomous.
Yeah, so snakes can be both venomous and poisonous, but tiger snakes are venomous. They contain neurotoxins, procoagulants, myotoxins, and cytotoxins.
That's a lot going on in the mouth of a snake.
Right?
I do know that some of the snakes, and I don't know which part this is, but I did read that some of the snakes have a chemical that starts to soften the flesh of its prey, which I assume is so it can, like, it's going to do it to a mouse so it can consume the mouse?
Yeah. So I guess it softens it too so that the venom can maybe penetrate quite quickly, depending on how big the fangs are. But the tiger snake in particular, having 4 different types of toxins, it's going to cause paralysis from the neurotoxin. A procoagulant is something that causes the blood to clot really quickly, but it also breaks down the clotting agents in the blood. So immediately the blood will start to clot, and then quite quickly it will break down the fibrin and platelets that cause the clotting, which means that the body will just hemorrhage massively.
So it's designed, I'm guessing, for quick death.
Yeah, and quite painful, I imagine, too. And then myotoxins, which attack muscle, and cytotoxins, which attack your cells and tissues. So it is targeting everything for muscle breakdown, tissue breakdown, full paralysis.
It's going to stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, like it did. And it didn't even bite you.
Literally, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So in thinking about like venomous and toxic and poisonous animals, I wondered what the world's most poisonous animal is. Do you have any ideas?
I thought it was always the taipan snake, which is Australian. But then I don't know if they count deaths towards that or if it's just the pure chemical. Yeah,
that's a good point. I guess I was defining it by like a lethal dose. So LD50 is like a toxicology measure of how lethal something is.
Sounds like a drink.
Yeah.
Party drink.
Yeah. WD-40 and your LD50 and your wicked...
Don't get them mixed up.
Yeah, so this is the lethal dose that will kill 50% of usually mice, but whatever they're testing. So if it's got a really, like a small amount will kill 50%, then it's very poisonous or toxic or venomous. And so according to that, it was the golden poison dart frog is the most poisonous.
Which you're saying poison because it's going to be through the skin or through, I'm imagining like it's secreting the poison, so it's going to be on touch rather, because I don't think I've ever seen a frog with fangs.
Right. So it's, through the skin. What's interesting is it doesn't actually create its own toxin. it gets it through its diet. So it's eating all these insects, which then make the toxin inside the frog, and it bioaccumulates these. And these are neurotoxins as well. So a single frog holds enough poison to kill 10 plus humans or 200,000 mice, and even touching it can be dangerous.
And I'd read something similar about the pufferfish or the fugu in Japan, that because it's known for being obviously very poisonous, and if the Japanese chef slices it wrong, you're all dead at the kitchen table or whatever.
No pressure.
No pressure. But that fish doesn't produce that poison either, that it actually, ingests it or gets it from its environment.
Yeah. So with both the frog and the pufferfish, if they're kept in environments sort of domesticated, I guess, or in aquariums or, as pets or whatever
my
you're
pet
doing.
fugu.
Each to their own, no judgment. Then they actually won't be toxic. So in some cases, it's like a bacteria inside of some animals, like Pseudomonas bacteria that makes the toxin in the saliva. And then if it bites you, it's venomous. If you ate it, it would be poisonous.
Good to know.
I then wanted to know about the most venomous animal. Any ideas?
The most venomous animal. Okay, so we've done poisonous, which was poison dart frog.
Yeah, which actually its species name is, I'm going to butcher this, but Phyllobates terribilis. So the terrible comes from the poison, which leads me to the most venomous animal, the box jellyfish, and Chironex fleckeri. So Chironex comes from chiron and then nex, meaning murderous hand, and then fleckeri for the person who discovered it. So I like that. It's a murderous hand.
Yeah, which it kind of is like with those tentacles dangling down into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a sting of 5 to 6 feet of tentacles can kill an adult male in minutes.
Wow.
Faster than most snake bites, and usually that's due to a quick cardiac arrest.
What's the science of why these animals have got venoms and poison? I'm guessing it's, what I understand, is two main reasons. It's either protection, self-preservation, like don't eat me, don't touch me, or it's going to be to kill prey. So I imagine in the frog case that we talked about, that's primarily to deter it being attacked.
Yeah.
Whereas the tiger snake we talked about earlier is going to be about disabling prey that it can then consume.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the kind of primary function of venom and poison in animals?
Absolutely. It's interesting, we have a lot of snakes that are venomous, whereas the other method, I guess, of hunting for a snake is constriction. And so it's likely that they're both as effective as each other, but they have evolved kind of independently and been able to proliferate because they both work and of their separate ecological niches. So having venom allows the snake to survive, to reproduce, and so those characteristics are passed on within that sort of ecosystem. And it's worked quite well for animals in Australia in particular.
And which is an interesting point because we are known to have so many poisonous animals. Like you talk to anyone from any other country and they're like, no, I can't go to Australia because you have spiders and you have snakes and you have all these things. Like, what's going on? Why do we have so many poisonous animals or venomous animals in Australia?
That's a good question. I think Australia has been isolated from other continents for around 50 million years. So allowing unique flora and fauna to evolve with less influence from sort of outside. So this leads to intense specialisation and adaptation. And then we've got like a predator-prey arms race. So in Australia, these creatures evolved potent toxins and defence mechanisms against predators to subdue prey. The harsh competitive environments as well. So it's really hot, dry, and often extreme. So you get fierce competition for resources. So many species have evolved venom and poisons to efficiently hunt, defend themselves, or deter predators. And then the absence of large mammalian predators. So we don't have like lions or bears or things like that. So venomous species have kind of filled these ecological niches.
Harsh conditions, food chain where they're not being kind of predated.
Yeah, and then there's room for them too. Like you've got bird-eating spiders.
Not worth thinking about.
No.
this all got me wondering about something else that I'd surprisingly never kind of realized before, that there are not really poisonous or venomous mammals. Now, I know there's the platypus.
Yeah, the male platypus has a venomous spur, yeah.
And some bats,
Yeah.
as well as shrews, apparently, which I'm not quite sure about whether that's actually venom poison or just like bad breath from being underground. But also birds. Like there's really only a couple of birds that seem to be poisonous if you ingest the flesh. But again, they're not venomous. They don't have anything like, if you touch them, they're not necessarily kind of like poisonous. So like it's got me wondering like why we don't have mammals that have. It seems such an effective way to disable prey or to protect yourself. Like why we haven't got mammals that have developed that.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think there is, one known bird, but it's a similar type of thing where it doesn't actually produce its own toxin. It's from the diet as well. But most mammals hunt in different ways, so they don't actually require a poison to disarm their prey. So whether they can out-hunt, but as long as you can kind of survive, eat your food, reproduce, then there's kind of no need to evolve these venoms or toxins. Does that answer your question?
Totally, which makes complete sense because when I think of like a snake or a frog doesn't really have teeth. Its only mechanism is kind of like jumping at best, like to escape. Snakes have no limbs. Like if they didn't have poison, they're basically just a big worm, which makes them just like lunch for a bird.
Yeah.
So it does make sense in those kind of thinking of the kind of biological development of these animals, whereas birds and mammals have claws, they have teeth, they have nails.
Different escape mechanisms, they can fly away, yeah.
They have incredible strength when we think of like apex predators in terms of like jaw development and limbs and speed to hunt down animals. So it does kind of make sense like why, like I think of something like a crocodile isn't poisonous or venomous because again it has lots of those traits that enable it to survive without the necessity, as you said. So that does make sense to me of why that would be the case.
Yeah, I think even some insects, I think the monarch butterfly is toxic to birds, and so they learn this quickly. They actually vomit if they eat monarch butterflies, and then they won't go near them again. So that's their way of surviving predation.
My favourite example that I read was a frog that's poison. The effect on snakes is that it makes them essentially yawn repetitively so that the frog, I guess, because the mouth is opening so much the frog can get out. I thought that was like, I feel like I've had that effect on people before. Like maybe I'm secreting a poison that I didn't realise. But yeah, I thought that was super specific but makes sense.
Isn't it? Because it doesn't want to kill its host. It wants to escape its host.
Just get away.
So it has a behavioural impact.
Yeah.
It makes it very tired and then escapes.
Yeah, I don't know if it was tired or more the jaw opening.
Okay.
But like essentially,
like a lockjaw kind of situation.
Like a yawning kind of thing, like a repeated yawning. So
that's so interesting.
Weird.
I hadn't heard that. Yeah. What an escape plan. I like it.
Send you to sleep.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that do that. Going back to my tiger snake story, what would have happened if it had bit me? Is there an antivenom for tiger snakes bites? I think there is.
Yeah, lucky for you if you were bitten, there is an antivenom. Not all venoms and poisons have an antivenom, but the tiger snake does. And it's quite cool actually. Well, I use the term loosely, but how these are made, right? So what has to happen is they have to get the venom and purify it, and then they have to get the antibodies that a body will make against the venom to give to you. So where do they get the antibodies from? Because a body needs to make these. So they inject usually a horse with the venom, and then the horse will be injected with the venom, produce the antibodies that will bind to the venom to render it useless. So they'll collect the blood from the horse. They will purify that to get these specific antibodies, and then they have the antivenom.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Does the horse die in the process, or are they...
So different animals actually respond differently to certain venoms and poisons. So I think in most cases the horse is actually all right, which is probably why they use horses. But I think, is it the black widow spider? That's really poisonous to humans, but less poisonous to dogs or cats. They might get minor swelling, whereas humans and primates, big trouble.
I have read that before, that a lot of cats and dogs, I think the funnel web maybe in Australia, I think maybe is very toxic to humans, but dogs and cats don't have the same reaction.
Yeah, and so that's because our biological makeup is slightly different in the way that it impacts us. So they get sort of minor swelling, but they'll be okay.
And the venom is the venom from the animal, right? Like, I know I've seen footage before of literally those people whose job would be your worst nightmare, but their job is to like milk funnel web spiders, where you're basically putting the spider's fangs into a little cup. Like, I'm imagining they're doing that for like a lot of these animals to get the venom, to then inject into the horse, to then create the antibodies that creates the antivenom.
Yeah, and they look at these sort of venoms from these animals as well, so milk the animal for the venom, but they're using them to create drugs as well. So we talk about the fact that they could paralyze us. Well, that's a really, really, really useful thing for painkillers. So something like the cone snail. Cone snail is this snail that lives in a beautiful shell, and a lot of people would pick it up, put it in their pocket, and then, the snail sort of uses a harpoon, and it injects the person with toxin, which can cause paralysis really, really quickly. And so the person isn't able to breathe. They'll remain conscious, but then they'll suffocate. But the toxin has been produced into a drug now, which is sometimes used in preference over opioids because it doesn't actually bind to opioid receptors. So it doesn't have that addictive nature that something like morphine would have.
So no getting high on snail shells.
No, don't try this at home.
It's kind of wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, though, there are some venoms, some poisons that we don't have antivenoms for. Tetrodotoxin being, again, I'm obsessed with the pufferfish, but it's apparently quite a common
I think
chemical.
the blue ring octopus uses,
The blue ring octopus does also have it, correct. There's no antivenom for that.
No, and that can have a similar effect, so causing the paralysis where you're not able to breathe. And that's because your diaphragm won't contract, won't move up and down. So if that's not happening, you're not able to change kind of the pressure and volume in the lungs to get air in.
You suffocate.
Yeah, so they'll put you on a ventilator and kind of wait for the toxin to be removed from the system, which is pretty scary, isn't it?
What a way to exit the beach.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the blue ring octopus again, because you mentioned this with the snakes, because I'd read that the blue ring octopus is both venomous and poisonous. So it's venomous when it bites and poisonous to touch.
Yeah.
And you said some snakes can be venomous and poisonous. Are there snakes that are poisonous to touch?
Yeah, so there's a snake in East and Southeast Asia called the tiger keelback. So it's found in Japan, China and Taiwan. And it has rear fangs that delivers venom when it bites. But it's poisonous because it absorbs and stores toxins from poisonous toads that it eats. And so if a predator eats it, then it will also get the toad toxin. And
wow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just like have the venom itself, it's also ingesting more poison so that it's poisonous if you eat it.
Yeah, because it's protecting itself from predators, and then it has the venom in which it can kill its prey.
Wow. Overkill, literally. But that's a good clarification, because it's poisonous isn't just obviously on the touch, as you said, it's on ingestion as well, which would be for a lot of animals a main protective mechanism. Like you mentioned before, the example of the butterfly that makes the birds sick.
Yeah.
Like it basically trains the prey to not eat you pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
What are some examples of where we've seen antivenom application having broader use beyond, like you mentioned, like it can be used for replacement of opioids. Is it true that Botox is also from venom or a type of venom?
Yeah, so botulinum toxin is a really, really, really lethal toxin that is produced by Clostridium botulinum, which is a bacteria. So there have been cases, because this particular bacteria lives in conditions without oxygen. So there's been cases of poisonings from food poisoning where, like, for example, mayonnaise has covered potato salad, and the toxin's been in there and people have ingested it and been killed. So it's
not putting on your face and getting a facelift.
No. Within
For real?
kind of,
wow.
Yeah, like quite quickly it will cause paralysis.
And that's the benefit of the
Then if we take that
cosmetic application.
Exactly, and in really small doses refine it, purify it, then it can be injected into the face and cause paralysis where you want it.
I love that.
Yeah.
From a bacteria.
Yep.
So good. Thank you, bacteria.
Speaking of potato salad, you can also be poisoned by mushrooms. So we know there was the mushroom poisoning case. So this is the death cap mushroom, and there's no specific antidote to this either. And it will actually block the body from building proteins. And so organs that need proteins the most or the fastest, so things like the liver and the kidneys, they will shut down. And so you'll die over, maybe depending on how much you ingested, maybe a few days of liver failure. So you need to be really careful with your mushrooms as well.
And my favourite, just to round it all out, is we haven't talked about like toxins, I don't think, like bacteria in the mouth and stuff. The Komodo dragon is definitely my favourite because it doesn't naturally have any venom or poison, but its mouth is so bacterial that when it bites its prey, it effectively acts like a poison, and then it just follows the prey that gets progressively sicker and sicker from the bacteria until the prey basically drops down, and then it kills the prey. So it effectively has developed in its disgustingly dirty mouth such a biological space that it can breed its own bacteria that is deadly, which acts much like a poison or venom, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I'm instantly thinking, because you get told to, you know, when a child at play dates and childcare bite one another, that their mouths are far more dangerous than, say, a dog bite. And that's because of the bacteria. So you have to get like a tetanus shot or something like that. But I hadn't heard that about the Komodo dragon.
So Komodo dragons and children, don't let them near you. Don't let them
As
bite
a rule,
you.
That's how I work.
I think that's a good rule for life. Treat children like you would treat a Komodo dragon. Wrapping it all up and bringing it back to teaching, I can't imagine there would be students that wouldn't, especially year 7s and 8s, that wouldn't love talking about spiders, snakes. Maybe the teacher won't like it, but a lot of links into the curriculum.
A lot of links, yeah. No show and tell, that would be my rule. But we could talk about it at a lot of places, biology related. So something like protein synthesis, because we have the mushroom that blocks protein synthesis. So bringing it into year 10 or VCE. Neurotoxins and breathing, so the effect that it has on the diaphragm and talking about it to get them interested in that. Respiration in year 8. Ecology and symbiosis, we talked about symbiotic effects of I think it's the bird and the bacteria. So that's year 7 ecology. Evolution and natural selection at year 10. Why does Australia have these animals? How have they adapted to have this kind of venom and toxin? There's a lot of stuff about enzymes as well and how this works. So we didn't really go into too much of it today, but you could, and particularly with Brazilian pit viper venom and how that's now a drug for ACE inhibitors. So it stops, I guess, blood pressure rising. So could be used in that context as well. And then the hemotoxins, so the coagulants and things, could be used as a hook or to get kids interested in learning about the components of the blood. Year 8 as well.
Plenty to cover off. Thanks for the chat on animals.
Thank you. That was fun.
Frightened, but it's okay. I
avoided a near-death experience with the tiger snake.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you.